It is Monday, January 5th, 2026. This is NHL Wraparound Short Shifts. Vic Morren, Neil Smith come out of the first weekend of the new year, fresh off a winter classic down in Miami Friday evening.
Yeah, and these games are getting to be more and more intolerable as far as the competition goes. This game, with all its pomp and circumstance and making the players stand in a line for how many minutes together while they did all their shenanigans at the beginning. I could see if this was an exhibition game, but this is supposed to count for 2 points in the standings. How long does it take the players to get into the mindset of hard competition to get those 2 points when it's just all pomp and circumstance before the game starts? It's so far out of the norm. I don't know how they really play hard after that.
Doesn't seem like the Rangers ever have a hard time with an outdoor game because now they're 6-0-0. After winning 5-1, Mika Zibanejad with a hat trick and 2 assists. It's the first ever hat trick in a Winter Classic and the third outdoor overall. Tyler Toffoli and David Pastrnak having those honors. But I thought just from a competition standpoint, Florida looked genuinely uncomfortable in this game.
Well, did you see the uniforms they were wearing? Wouldn't you be uncomfortable? They looked like the Wicked Witch when Dorothy landed on her sister. I mean, I don't count it as a real game when I watch it. I count it as just this, you could go any way you want. Bobrovsky wasn't that great in it, but do I blame him? No, I mean, it's a whole different thing to have to play out in a baseball park and the fans are 2 miles away, probably watching the game through binoculars.
I thought the crowd level was very low. Audio wasn't great throughout. I didn't think it was a great show by TNT, period, because the penalty clock did not work on their score bug. You could see the time remaining on power plays that was superimposed on the ice. That fly cam on power plays absolutely drove me nuts, that a team is setting up and the camera's 200 feet away in the other direction. And then that nonsense in the second intermission where Bissonnette went up and started dancing on stage. So it was a charade. I was underwhelmed by the presentation.
I don't watch much of the pregame, postgame, or between periods, but I did see that dance routine, which I thought was absolutely stupid. As far as I'm concerned, the whole thing is gone so far overboard now, trying to make it look like a beach and palm trees and all that stuff. I don't know. I guess they must make a lot of money off this stuff because it's certainly not the competitive environment that NHL players are used to.
Bruins Lightning, 4 weeks, Stadium Series. Looking forward to it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, can't wait.
All right, so what we're going to do with this opening segment here today is it's almost like rock, paper, scissors, where you can win and lose depending on whatever combination is, or as you like to say, Neil, you just never know from night to night. So the Panthers come off this lackluster performance in the Winter Classic on Friday, and then on Sunday, they beat an Avalanche team 2-1 who'd won 10 straight, 13-game unbeaten streak. They played Daniel Tarasoff in goal instead of Bobrovsky. Maybe Colorado a little tired coming off game against Carolina the night before.
A little tired? They're playing one of the best teams in the league the night before, and they got to play their ass off to beat them, and then they got to fly from Raleigh, North Carolina, down to South Florida, get in the middle of the night, and then play against a Panthers team that's been resting and wants to make up for how badly they played in the outdoor game.
Well, the Panthers certainly did that. But again, this was a great win for Colorado against Carolina on Saturday, who then had to go up and play in Jersey on Sunday evening. And they bounced back after blowing a 3-1 lead to the Avalanche to win at the Prudential Center. And in that game, have you ever seen 3 goals more gift wrap than what the Devils gave to Carolina? Luke Hughes, victim on 2 of them, an own goal for the first goal, then an ill-advised decision to carry the puck in front of his own net, and Taylor Hall just tipped the puck in past Jake Allen, who on the third goal mishandled the puck to lead to the insurance marker.
I know, it was all self-inflicted by the New Jersey Devils, but that aside, they're just not playing well. The Devils are in some trouble here. They got to get their game turned around. They're not playing well. Their offense is completely dried up. Yes, had they not made these 3 mistakes, who knows? Maybe it could have gone into overtime 0-0, because that's the way that Carolina was able to score, was through their, as you say, gift wrapping of the goals.
But the Devils on Saturday beat a Utah team handily 4-1, and that was the same Utah team that blasted the Islanders 7-2 last Thursday. And then the Islanders come back on Saturday, and they win in overtime on the second of 2 goals by Matthew Schaefer, on a night that Auston Matthews also passed Matt Sundin for the all-time Toronto franchise record with his 421st goal. So, as we say, you cannot figure this league out from night to night.
No, you can't. And I watched all 3 of those games pretty intently, and it was incredible. Utah, how they blasted the Islanders later in the game. It took them half the game to get going. Yeah. And then it took the Islanders half the game to get going against Toronto. It looked like Toronto was going to win that game. 2 goals scored identically when you think about how Auston Matthews came in, blew by the defenseman, went in front of the net and tucked it around the goaltender to score. That was by David Riddick. And then down at the other end, young Matthew Schaefer does the same thing to Joseph Woll, going around Riley like he was an orange cone and sticking it on the other side of Joseph Woll for an identical goal. And then, of course, young Schaefer gets the goal in overtime, which just drove that crowd at UBS Arena insane, rightfully so, and they come away with the victory.
And if you haven't seen those 2 goals, it was the first goal by each of those 2 players. Take a look at them, because it is truly something how alike those 2 goals were. So now explain this as we continue into this realm of unpredictability. Vegas, 2-5-3 in their last 10, losing in St. Louis and Chicago, this one in overtime, on a father's trip where the dads were previously 11-0-1.
The only thing I can figure out about Vegas is their defense is depleted. Their goaltending is depleted. Aiden Hill has been on the shelf for a long time. McNabb has been hurt. Theodore has been hurt. Pietrangelo has basically retired. He hasn't dressed this season. And so their defensive game isn't the same. But I didn't think that they had slipped enough to lose to both St. Louis and Chicago, who look like they're automatic non-playoff teams this year. So Vegas has got to. Vegas has got, no, you never know. Vegas has got to look around and figure out what they're going to do to get their ship back in contention again, because right now they're not a Stanley Cup contender.
Dallas, winless in their last 5, including 2 to the Chicago Blackhawks.
Again, how do you make this stuff up? I mean, they've still got Ottinger. It's not like he's hurt. They've still got all their powerful guys up front. That Wyatt Johnston, what a player this guy is. And of course, Robertson is still scoring. This one's tough to explain, but Glenn Gullinson's going to have to come up with a solution to get Dallas going again.
4-3 overtime loss against Montreal at home on Sunday. So we just mentioned Chicago a few moments ago. 3 straight wins, 4-1-1 in their last 5 after losing 8 out of 9. Tyler Bertuzzi, all 3 goals in that win over Vegas on Sunday. So now the Hawks have turned it around a little bit.
And without Bedard and without Nazar, right? I mean, These 2 guys are 2 up and coming. I mean, Bedard's not up and coming. He's already there. Frank Nazar is a guy that plays really well, and both of them are on the shelf, and yet Chicago is doing great. 3 cheers to Jeff Blashill in Chicago. He's doing a terrific job.
Why don't we give some cheers to Dan Muse? Pittsburgh has now won 5 straight after winning once in 10. And they have a big comfort behind win on Sunday against Columbus, which we're going to do a deeper dive into the Blue Jackets in a bit. But the Penguins now find themselves right back in contention for a wild card.
And you know what? Send Dan Muse a certificate for Grubhub or something. Let him eat. The guy looks like he weighs 85 pounds soaking wet. So, I mean, and I can understand not eating when you're coaching Pittsburgh because you wouldn't have an appetite. But, boy, he deserves to have a good meal now.
That's the best you got. Tell you about a team that's not feeding up on anybody right now. The Edmonton Oilers. And as a matter of fact, they've been taking a lunch the last couple of games, losing back-to-back home games to Boston and Philadelphia, being outscored 11-4.
We got to get the Edmonton newspapers and find out what's going on there and how they're getting killed. I can't imagine that the Edmonton Oilers fans, season ticket holders, sponsors, suite holders, they got the 2 best players in the league, so they think, so do I think, Draisaitl and McDavid, and yet keep losing. Like, how is this possible with this team that they're playing this poorly? We have come to think that sooner or later Edmonton's going to turn it on, and yet we're halfway through the season and we haven't seen it.
Do you like the level of unpredictability that we're seeing? We've just spent about 12, 13 minutes talking about how back and forth this league is on literally a night-to-night basis. Do you like it? Do you not like it? I
don't like it. And I'll tell you why I don't like it, because it frustrates me because I can't figure out who's going to win from night to night. You know, on sPix on NHL Wraparound.com, just to give you some insights, I predicted 5 winners yesterday, and I went 1, 1, and 3. You just can't predict these things. Even if you're seeing a cellar dweller, a bottom team, Chicago, we just said 3 straight wins, 4-1-1 after losing 8 of 9. Edmonton Oilers with McDavid and Draisaitl, the 2 guys that are unstoppable, losing back-to-back home games, not to powerhouses, but to the Boston Bruins and Philadelphia Flyers. You can't predict what's going to happen in the game. Now, is that good or bad? I don't like it. I personally don't like it. I like it when you can watch this season for 40 games so far and you get a feel for who's good, who's not good. Right now, the only team that you can put your money down on night after night is Colorado. Yes, they did lose to the Panthers on Sunday, but they'd gone 10 straight wins and they were on a 13-game unbeaten streak. But that's the only team that you can say night to night. On the other end of the scale, Vic, the Nashville Predators that looked very unpredatorial up until recently, now all of a sudden win games when you don't expect them to. So it goes in the opposite direction too. You don't know who's going to win any game. And maybe that's great for the casual fans. But if you're following this thing for 6 straight months, now we're 3 months in, don't you want to have an idea of where you're at in the league and where it's headed? And isn't that why you watch consistently, so that you understand what's going on? And if you can't understand what's going on after watching 3 months of hockey, that's not good in my mind.
You know, your picks are 85 games over 500. I think you're bitter about your overtime record, where you've got 52 overtime losses this year. And I would venture to say you're probably hitting maybe at about 25% in games that go after 60 minutes.
Yeah, I do have that. But remember, folks, how many games in total have I actually predicted, though? I mean, it's a lot of games. 200, 300 and something, 400 almost, I think.
Yeah, probably 400,
Yeah, 400 games I predicted winners on. Unfortunately, you're going to get a lot of these OT games where both teams are sitting on the bench going, yippee, we got a point. Great. No matter what happens now, we get out of here with a point, you know, so they're not going to kill us on the bus on the way to the airport.
All right, let's hit some more good and bad. You just mentioned Nashville. They are 13-6-0 in their last 19. They are 1 point out of a wild card spot in the West. They are starting to play finally as we expected since the beginning of last season. Saturday in Calgary, Nick Hague scores the game winner with 29 seconds left. And Steven Stamkos makes a key block, completely sells himself out right at the end. It's a 4-3 win for the Preds in Calgary, where the Flames had previously won 9 out of 10 at home.
There you go again. Calgary Flames, hot at home. Well, they're the Flames. And you think they're playing great at home. Oh, they got Nashville coming in. Well, guess what? Nashville ends that home winning streak. So, once again, not predictable.
Biggest winning streak in the league right now? Tampa Bay Lightning, 7 in a row, 7-3 win in San Jose on Saturday. Nikita Kucherov just keeps going. Goal and 4 assists. Darren Radish, first hat trick for a Lightning defenseman since Dan Boyle in 2006. And we have been talking about the injuries to Victor Hedman and to Ryan McDonough, Eric Chernak. And here's Radish, one of 5 backliners in the NHL in double digits in goals this year. So John Cooper's team continues to generate in different ways. And right now they sit atop the Atlantic Division.
Being an ex-GM, I want to give a shout out to Julien Brisebois too, because we spend a lot of time tooting the horn of John Cooper, saying what a great coach he is and how he gets his guys to all get together no matter what the injuries are, no matter what that is. And we're right. You're right. We are right saying that about Cooper. He is one of the best coaches in the league. But Julien Brisebois keeps coming up with players, keeps finding a way to fill holes. And Darren Radish is a good example of that. Like, where did he find this guy all of a sudden come up and play like one of the best offensive defensemen in the league? So I think the combination of Brisebois and Cooper has been amazing. They do have great players. Kucherov is, one of the top 3 guys in the league. But I'm just saying, I think that as a manager, coach, these 2 guys have done a terrific job.
Other side of the coin, Vancouver Canucks. Now an NHL worst, 4-12-3 at home. They lost to the Bruins 3-2 in overtime on Saturday. Fraser Minten, 2 goals, including the overtime winner against his hometown team. And the Winnipeg Jets winless streak is now at 9 after a 4-2 loss in Ottawa on Saturday. And to make matters worse, defenseman Logan Stanley is suspended for a game after a sucker punch on Brady Tkachuk. So even though you could say all the teams are still in it, this Jets team continues to take on water. And it's something that you can't turn away from because they were the President's Trophy a year ago. You could see the frustration continuing to build with this team.
Well, and let me remind you of another thing, Vic. We said in our summer coolers when we talked about the Jets and Dallas and Colorado and how hard it will be to get by these guys. We included the Jets as one of the elite teams in the Western Conference. And now they're at the very bottom of the whole conference. You got to think about that for a minute. The Canucks having the NHL's worst home record is tough to believe when you've got a team not too far from here that I know very well and had the league worst home record. I don't know how the Canucks can do worse at home than the Rangers started this season, but they found a way to do it.
And regarding the Jets, not only are they worse in the conference, they're worse in the league with only 34 points, now 9 points out of a playoff spot, and they're 6 games below NHL 500. That's trouble.
That means no playoffs. That's what that means.
Let's talk about another team that is finding their way out of contention. And that's the Columbus Blue Jackets. And we were talking about the back forth, the unpredictability from night to night. So on Saturday, they end the Sabres' 10-game winning streak with a relatively easy 5-1 win. And then on Sunday, they blow another third period lead in their loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins. They were up 4-1 in the second, then a late goal by Noel Acciari, then Tommy Novak and Rickard Rakell. Rakell's goal coming with 14 seconds left in regulation tied the game. Sidney Crosby with the winner in overtime. But I will tell you that when that game went to 4-2, you could see the Blue Jackets tightening up. And that third period was a train wreck.
And this has to fall back on Dean Evason to a certain degree, that he's got to get his squad to not squeeze their sticks so tightly when things start to go the other way. Rickard Rakell scoring with the net empty at the other end and them able to tie it up. And this was in Columbus. Don't forget, it's not like it was in Pittsburgh. This was in front of your home fans. There's nothing worse than losing when you've got a 4-1 lead at home. And so they're going to have to figure this thing out because, as you just said, Christopher Columbus is taking on water.
The interesting thing here is that most of these blown leads have actually taken place in Columbus. And you have to wonder that once that first goal goes in, you hear the apprehension in the building. And I'm going to give you some math now because I did a little bit of homework last night. The Blue Jackets have had 14 blown third period leads that have affected the standings in some manner. 8 of those leads were by 2 goals. The Blue Jackets have blown 12 points for themselves in the Metro/Eastern Conference. They have enabled 22 standings points for other teams that have picked up points at their expense. 9 points against the Metro, 8 against the Atlantic, and 5 against the Western. But that's 17 points within the Eastern Conference that they have allowed other teams to get. And when you've got clubs this bunched up, you're not setting yourself up well.
That's an understatement. I mean, now being at 18, 16, and 7, they're minus 10 in goal differential. Winning percentage-wise, they're just one shade above the Rangers. So the Rangers actually, winning percentage-wise, are in dead last in the conference. But Columbus shouldn't be as bad as they are had they taken advantage of their work during the first 2 periods of games. But they have been getting the heebie-jeebies when the third period came along.
So let's sum all of this up. Is this parity or parody? Because in the Eastern Conference, every club is at NHL 500 or better. 12 of the 16 teams in the West and all 8 in the Pacific have negative goal differential. The only teams that are plus in the West are 3 clubs you expect: Colorado, Minnesota, and Dallas. The other one is Utah, of all clubs. And the last 7 teams in the NHL standings all reside in the Western Conference.
And when you look at the goal differential in the West, it's like Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota just beat up on everybody all the time, although that doesn't happen, but it feels like that. And the rest of them are just hanging in there. The only other plus team is Utah, which has a winning percentage of only .488. So it's just a weird year, and really weird in the Western Conference. And in the East, as you said, everybody's still in it. There's no way to figure out who's going to win night to night, who's going to be in the playoffs, who's not going to be in the playoffs. But I guess this is the way the league wants it.
You would think, because almost 4 out of every 5 games is labeled as a close game, meaning 1 goal or 1 goal plus an empty net. So in its own way, Gary Bettman's probably getting exactly what he wants.
And what the 32 owners want to be involved in it the whole time. The problem is for the managers and the coaches, there is going to be 16 teams eliminated at some point. And those 16 all are in the soup as far as their fan base and everybody else is, that they're mad that they didn't make it, especially when it's this close all year long. Like, why can't we make it? Why can't we make it? Why can't we make it? Well, not everybody can make it. Sorry, half of you don't.
You look like a man that could use something predictable at this point, because we've been going on for about 25, 26 minutes now, and we've talked ad nauseum about parity, unpredictability. You want something predictable?
Well, I know what that is, that I'll end up buying lunch today.
We are 5 games beyond the midway point of the season. And believe it or not, I think you and I can safely say that we have a guaranteed playoff series in the first round already.
Okay, who is that?
That's going to be the Dallas Stars and the Minnesota Wild. Why? Because they are 2-3 in the Central Division. They are 11 points, both of them, behind Colorado, and Colorado has played fewer games, and I don't think anybody's surpassing them. And they are 16 points clear of Nashville and St. Louis, who are tied for 4th in the Central. So you see that moving between now and mid-April? I sure don't.
No, I don't. I don't see that moving. That's good analysis, too. That's 2 teams who started their franchise in the same place, albeit Minnesota and St. Paul, but Dallas Stars started off in Minneapolis as the Minnesota North Stars. And so that'll be real interesting, because I think the people in Minnesota still haven't forgotten that their beloved North Stars moved south to Dallas, Texas.
The old Met Center in Bloomington, and they can thank Norm Green for the move.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's hit some personnel items. And you had said, and rightfully so, that the only thing that can derail the Colorado Avalanche pursuit of history and the Bruins' record season of 3 years ago is injuries. And goaltender Mackenzie Blackwood has a reported lower body injury. He will be reevaluated after the team returns home from their 3-game road trip that will end in Tampa. Gabriel Landeskog crashed into the goalpost in Florida on Sunday. Upper body injury, may miss some time, according to head coach Jared Bednar. And defenseman Devon Taves went into the boards feet first in the win over Carolina on Saturday. So these are 3 key pieces to their lineup. Do they have enough to continue to sustain their winning ways? I absolutely think so. But if these things start to pile up, you may see some effect downwind.
You might. And Mackenzie Blackwood, you can't use the Blackwood, so you know what you do? You get out the Wedgwood. And that's what they did, and actually played Wedgwood back-to-back games in Carolina, and then again the next night against Florida, where they weren't able to win, but Wedgwood still played really well. Landeskog's injury was really scary. He crashed very hard into the goalpost, sliding in, hit his side ribs or top of hip type area, couldn't get up off the ice, had to be helped up by the trainer and by Nate McKinnon, and was helped off the ice and couldn't hardly walk down the hallway. It looked like it could be a knee type injury, but then they said upper body. So thankfully it's not the right knee that he had so many problems with earlier. Devon Taves, wearing the Quebec Nordiques uniforms against the Hartford Whaler uniforms of the Carolina Hurricanes, went hard into the boards. It looked like it could be a upper ankle, high ankle sprain. We'll have to see, because they'll never tell us. But those are 3 important players, as you said, out of the lineup.
Trent Miner has been called up by Colorado to back up Wedgwood, while Blackwood is on the mend. A couple of other key injuries. Seth Jones left the Winter Classic, and many of you probably saw it, took a shot up high early in that game, and he missed Sunday's game against the Avalanche. Tom Wilson for the Capitals and newly minted Olympian left the shootout loss against Chicago on Saturday, favoring his right leg. But good news is head coach Spencer Carberry says it doesn't look too bad. Bo Horvat of the Islanders to be reevaluated around the end of this week with the lower body injuries suffered in the New Year's Day loss to Utah. This should not affect his ability to play for Team Canada at the Olympics. And Ilya Sorokin, activated from IR, he was the backup to David Riddick, as you had said earlier, in the Isles' overtime win against Toronto on Saturday.
So here's a couple other things for you. JT Miller has been cleared for contact, but he will not play in tonight's game at Madison Square Garden. Youngster Matthew Schaefer, who did the histrionics with the 2 goals against Toronto, including the overtime goal, has the flu or some variation of that because he is absent from practice today due to illness. William Nylander, Toronto Maple Leafs, placed on IR.
All right.
And that's about all we got from the Neil Smith file of injuries. But Bo Horvat, he went off looking like his knee could be really hurt again, but he is skating, which is good, which means it can't be that bad if he's at least up and skating.
And you'd mentioned JT Miller earlier. The Rangers this evening play Utah as the Mammoth finish their sweep of the New York metro area. So on Friday, we talked a lot about the Canadian Olympic team, and the U.S. team had just been announced during that fiasco of a reveal by NBC on their Today Show. So let's get a little bit deeper into this, Neil. 21 of the 23 players from the 4 nations are part of this Olympic team, which has a roster of 25 players. The newbies, Tage Thompson of the Sabres, Clayton Keller of the Mammoth, Seth Jones of the Florida Panthers, and Quinn Hughes of the Minnesota Wild. You remember that Hughes was unable to play in the 4 nations. Adam Fox and Chris Kreider not named to the team, as well as other stars such as Jason Robertson, Patrick Kane, Cole Caulfield, Alex DeBrincat, Alex Tuck, Matthew Nyes, and Lane Hudson. But I think something that is intriguing a lot of people here is that Bill Guerin / Mike Sullivan, the head coach, did not select Adam Fox. And last time I checked, Fox plays for Sullivan in New York.
So is this a case that they want to keep him healthy for the rest of the season for the Rangers playoff push, or is this a snub from your own coach, of which he's got to coach him through the rest of the season? There has to have been a conversation between Sullivan and Fox about this and an explanation as to what's going on.
I think one thing that we've got to remember is everybody is looking at the Olympics in terms of this is what's on the front end and how injuries may wind up affecting these rosters before changes can be made right up until the start of the tournament. Let's also remember, players are going to get hurt during this tournament, that when you are playing country on country, best on best, the intensity level of this, and we saw it in the 4 nations, it's going to get amped up. And so for all the glory that all of these nations are going to have sending their players over to the Olympics, there is going to be a backside that's going to have to be dealt with. And we saw with the Kachuk brothers, even coming out of 4 nations, both of them were hurt.
And this is what's very peculiar about hockey, the National Hockey League in 2026. You got to remember it's a business, right? This is a business. And for the owners, the further the team can go, the more revenue they can bring in. So now you allow your players, which is your product, to go and compete at something outside of your business. They get hurt so they can't perform for your business. And therefore, you can't go as far and make as much revenue. So it's very peculiar, really, when you think about it, that the league, the teams, the individual owners would want their players playing in a situation where they could get hurt and not be able to play for them.
I'm awaiting the groaning that is going to be forthcoming sometime at the end of February.
Yeah.
World Junior Championships conclude on Monday evening. Czechia against Sweden for the gold medal. The Czechs beat Canada for the third straight year on Sunday, 6-4. And the United States was denied a chance for a three-peat, losing 4-3 in overtime to Finland on Friday. And then Finland went and lost to the Swedes in Sunday's other semifinal.
And that was a very frustrating loss for Finland against Sweden. Remember, these two countries are side by side in Scandinavia, and they're very competitive with each other. And this win was on a shootout. The Sweden win was in a shootout. Which
dirty word.
Can't be any worse way to lose than in a shootout, in a skills competition. So, unfortunately, Finland loses out to their rival, Sweden. And as you said, Sweden will play the former Czechia, for the gold medal.
Sweden's last win in 2012 and last win for the Czechs in 2001. They were known as the Czech Republic. Our website is NHLWraparound.com. And if you are tuning into us on Apple or Spotify or any other audio platform and have the ability to leave a comment on our show, please do so. And if you are tuning into us via YouTube, please subscribe. We welcome Sian OJ, NHL Inferred, and Adam L. as our latest subscribers. So welcome aboard. Neil, possible abbreviated short shifts on Wednesday. You're going to be heading back to South Carolina for the first time since last year.
That's right. And sadly, 4 of us drove up here back in November. Only 3 will return. So I'm looking forward to getting back to the better weather anyway, and getting home for only 2 weeks and then be back again. But the show will go on from South Carolina.
And you should, of course, make mention of your beloved dog, AJ, that won't be making the trip back.
That was on one of our shows, predicting scores, talking about those poor Sharkies. It was a couple seasons ago. They're not so poor this year, but a couple of years ago, they were the poor Sharkies.
I will see you on Friday when we return with NHL Wraparound. A little bit of a change in the schedule, but great that you'll be getting back to South Carolina. So, Neil, travel safe, and we'll speak to you then.
Thank you, and I will do my best.
Take care, all.